Good day and welcome to yet another entertaining and informative episode of the Talk Shop. My name is Tak Money and today I'm honored to be joined by Honorable Daniel Molokele from Whange Constituency. Welcome, Honorable.
Thank you so much for hosting me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's get straight into it. I mean, we're always, when we're talking about politics in Zimbabwe, there's always a lot of talk about intimidation and violence and that sort of thing. How is this affecting you guys from doing your jobs, and how does it affect your constituents?
I think at a constituency level, I'm from Whange Central in Martinov. It's one of the constituents that had a very peaceful campaign in 2018.
Okay.
So from a personal experience, I wouldn't say in my constituency we had violence. Both MDC Alliance and ZANU-PF have managed to work well. But there are some parts of Zimbabwe where we know, especially in rural Mashonaland, where it's not possible for the opposition to even campaign, even to deploy candidates or agents. So we as Zimbabwe are still growing as a democracy. There is need for tolerance. There is need to accept political plurality and diversity. And where we are, we still have a long way to go, especially as we look towards 2023. We need to accept that it's a multi-party democracy. Everyone has the right to form their party.
And in this growth that you're talking about and this development that we'll get amongst our youths, amongst our communities and all, what do you think needs to be done to reshape Zimbabwean politics?
I think a lot needs to be invested in civic education, especially in primary schools and secondary schools. A culture of citizenship is needed so that people at school, they are taught that for the country to move forward, for development to happen, we have to behave like proper citizens, be interested even in who is our councillor, who is our mayor, who is our minister, who is our president, because those people make decisions that affect not just our future but many generations ahead. So a lot of Zimbabweans, especially young people, they come out of school, they come out of university, they come out of college, they are not interested in politics. And it's a mistake, because now, even if you are not interested, someone else is making a choice for you. And you cannot complain that this MP is useless when you didn't even register to vote.
And do you feel that Parliament has a role in shaping Zimbabwean politics? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, with the polarization that is in Parliament, do you think that Zimbabweans can actually depend on that Parliament to reshape their politics?
So let's put it upside down.
Yeah.
Parliament is actually reflecting the society.
Okay.
Outside the Parliament, the society is polarized.
Okay.
So when you see what's playing out at Parliament, it's actually not coming from Parliament. It's coming from the nation.
Okay.
The nation itself has no culture of political tolerance. So if you say I'm ZANU-PF and I'm your cousin, and I say I'm MDC, we cannot eat together anymore.
Yeah.
While we've got family blood. So it's wrong for Zimbabweans to view a political rival as an enemy. So we need to change the culture. And Parliament will have a role to play in ensuring that the electoral law is changed in such a way that it promotes a culture of tolerance. But most important of all, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the civil society, must play its role. All the national broadcasters like ZBC must play their role in ensuring that there is an uptake or an increase in the number of programs where they interview people, they bring experts to explain to Zimbabweans the advantage of having choice in political leadership. Not that we want one party state, no, we want multi-party so that you can have a choice. If I form a party called Rastafarians Alliance, and I'm a Rastafarian and I feel it speaks to what I believe in, then I should be allowed not to vote for MDC Alliance. I should be allowed to vote for Rastafarians Alliance. That's where the problem with Zimbabwe is. We need to have a culture of citizenship where we respect each other's choices.
All right. Side note, thank you for that suggestion. I will consider it. All right. And besides Parliament, what other institutions are there to help shape the politics of our country? And do you feel like they have been doing their duty and helping our country?
Yeah. One of the obvious key players is Zimbabwe Republic Police. Unfortunately, it's not playing its role. The Zimbabwe Republic Police is like a referee in a sports match. It's supposed to be neutral. But we know from experience that Z-therapy is never neutral. It's always biased towards the ruling party. So when there is a conflict on the streets, Zimbabwe Republic Police is a law enforcement agency. It's supposed to make sure there is no conflict. But you will see that if ZANU-PF people beating people, then Z-therapy backs off. But when it's MDC Alliance, they come running. So we need the Z-therapy to be less partisan, less political, and more neutral and more national and public. We also have the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is also an arbiter in terms of the elections process. It's also a problem because it's highly compromised. We can't even call it an independent institution because even as right now, they can't even announce by-elections. They already have COVID regulations for by-elections, but they say, according to the law, we cannot call for elections. Guess what? They have to wait for the president. The president is also what? The president of ZANU-PF. So he has to consider first what is the interest of ZANU-PF as a political party, and if he feels the by-elections are not in the interest of ZANU-PF, he will not announce the election dates. And ZEC will wait until the president announces. So it's already a sign that the system is biased in favor of the ruling party. In other countries, the Electoral Commission does not need to consult a political player like the president. Because in Zimbabwe, the president is elected. He's a popularly elected candidate. So he's obviously interested in the election process. So we need ZEC to be more neutral in this game. And so far, it is not showing any form of neutrality. Another key player is the public broadcaster, Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, because it is supposed to inform the public, the citizens, together with Zimbabwe Newspapers Company, Zimpapers, that is called Herald, the most influential newspaper in the country, the Chronicle, and so on, in its stables. And they've got ZTN and so on. So they are paid for by the taxpayer. Their job is to be neutral, but we know that ZBC is an extension of the ruling party. They will only cover bad things about the opposition. So we need a change. ZBC must be for everyone. In South Africa, the South Africa Broadcasting Corporation, there were elections in November. I can assure you, they even covered the launch of the manifesto for the EFF, for the DA. Yeah. In Zimbabwe, that has never happened. Where the opposition has the launch of a manifesto or a rally, ZBC covers that live. They never do that. But for ZANU-PF, they don't just cover live. They even over-interview the candidates. So we need ZBC to be neutral. And we need it to be open to every political player. Those are some of the key institutions in Zimbabwe that have a key role. And that's the same with Herald. It's the most widely read newspaper in the country, together with Chronicle in the southern parts of Zimbabwe. They only cover bad things about the other parties and good things about ZANU-PF. And it's wrong because they are funded by the taxpayers.
Right. And then in our country, politicians have largely been, accused of polarization and fueling hate and violence and that sort of thing. What do you think should be done, to kind of fix this situation?
I think everyone knows that during the liberation struggle, when ZANU-PF was in Mozambique or so on, they never accepted diversity. So it's either you toe the line or you're a sellout. So that has affected Zimbabwe because ZANU-PF is the most dominant party since independence. So in Mozambique, if you do not agree with the position of the leadership, you were not allowed to have a different opinion. If you insisted on a different opinion, you were labeled a sellout and you will be summarily executed. So even today, they are still using slogans like Pasinani, Pasinani, because I don't agree with you. It's a multi-party democracy. So we need ZANU-PF, we need all political parties to stop sloganeering at personal level. Let's engage at policy level. Let's say, if you vote for me, this is what I advocate for. Don't say, don't vote for us. Right. Say, don't vote for me. Market yourself. Why are you talking about the other party? I think that's what political parties need to be challenged to do. Stop talking about your neighbor or your rival. Go to the electorate and market yourself and say, vote for me because of the following reasons.
Okay. And what do you think about the idea that, violence will only end if we decide to go for proportional representation instead of, these direct elections?
I don't know where the logic is, because proportional representation are elections too. Mm-hmm. So the culture of violence is bigger than that. Right. The culture of violence is a national problem that needs to be solved. Whatever electoral system you are using, there will be violence. The losers, when they see that they are losing and they've got access to state resources, machinery, they will use it to their advantage. It just doesn't happen in Zimbabwe. It's a problem across Africa. We had an election recently in Zambia. The state machinery was used by the ruling party to suppress the opposition. Eventually, the opposition won. We had a similar problem a year or two ago in Malawi. The state machinery was used against the opposition. Eventually, the opposition won. So there are countries in Africa where it's not even possible to have an election without state resources being used to inculcate violence against the opposition. And Zimbabwe is a bad example of that.
Okay. And as a legislator, how have you used your position in parliament to maybe, reshape the politics in your constituency and maybe even in the country as a whole?
At Whange Central, we made sure that we engaged our main rivals, ZANU-PF and other parties. We even engaged the church leaders. We have a national day of prayer, sort of a constituency day of prayer, annual day, where the pastors pray for the development of our community. And I remember the last one, the losing candidate from ZANU-PF and myself were sitting together, and the church leaders prayed for us. And he accepted that I had won, and he encouraged the community to focus not on politics but on development. And I greeted him, I handshook him, and I said, this is the politics that you want. If I lose, I should accept that you are the winner, and let's work together, because we are all from Whange. We need to see Whange develop, because development is good for everyone, whether they are from which party. So at national level, we need to replicate that situation. Unfortunately, in most of the constituencies, it's not going to happen even in 2023. They have a different approach to politics, survival of the fittest, and we need to discourage that. At parliament level, we need to make sure that the Electoral Act is changed in such a way that Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has a way to neutralize those who are committing violence, to make them pay fines or to be disqualified. But it goes back to my earlier point about the independence of ZEC. Because if the perpetrator is from the ruling party, ZEC should be morally bound to even make a pronouncement against them. But at this moment in time, it's a tough ask, because the parliament is a majority of ZANU-PF. So ZANU-PF is likely to resist any attempt to make the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission more neutral, because they cannot reform themselves out of power. This is about competitiveness, and if you are the ruling party, you have an upper hand.
Okay, thank you very much. And I mean, on this show, we're just trying to encourage young Zimbabweans, to be more engaged, to look for information around, how they can be involved in all these political, socio-economic issues happening around them in their communities. So maybe as some last words of encouragement or advice to the young generation out there on, how they can maybe take up some of these challenges and issues that are affecting them and their families.
The biggest mistake any young person in Zimbabwe can do is to ignore politics. Even the current president left the country as a teenager to go to Zambia. So we need to encourage young people to get involved, because the future does not belong to the president. He's turning 80 next year, 8 years. And you are turning 20, 6 years gap. So you are, as a youth, you should be more interested in the future. And the future begins what? Today, not tomorrow. So young people should register to vote. Young people should make sure they turn out in their numbers to vote. Young people should protect the vote. They should learn from across the Zambezi. The 2021 elections was decided by the youth vote in Zambia. In 2016, the opposition and the ruling party, they were almost tied. But Zambia registered 900,000 new voters in the last 5 years. And guess what? Almost 1 million was the gap between the opposition and the ruling party. So it is the youths who are the decisive factor in Zambia for 2021. So in Zimbabwe, we have the same problem. A lot of young people are not registered voters. And so we're challenging the youth of Zimbabwe that if you are not going to vote, if you are not going to register to vote, you are mortgaging your future to the elders who know that by 2030 they will be gone. You will be turning 30. They will be gone. So you will have nothing to receive, what we call inheritance. You have nothing. So youths should defend their future, and one of the easiest ways to do it is to register to vote, is to participate in politics, not just as voters. They should also campaign. I know in Rwanda they recently appointed, I think, a 21-year-old as a minister. That's what we want to see in Zimbabwe. We want to see ministers, because this country is youthful. You know that Africa is in fact, Africa is the most youthful continent in the world. And Zimbabwe is a very youthful country. More than 65% of the people in Zimbabwe are less than 30 years old. So, but look at the leadership. More than 60% of the leaders in this country are over 50 years old. So we need to balance the generation gap. We need more youth in political leadership, more councillors, more mayors. In Zambia, we had about 2 cities being governed by youthful mayors out of this election. They have set the standard, and we must follow it. We need a mayor who is 25 years old. We've seen it in Zambia. It can happen in Zimbabwe. So young people out there, 2023, Chakachaya, it's your responsibility to defend your future. If you don't do it, Don't cry. Me, I'm old. I've been young, but now I'm old.
Yeah.
As a young person, I was at the University of Zimbabwe. When I was 21 years old, I was Secretary General of the SRC. When I was 23 years old, I was the president of the University of Zimbabwe. In 1999, I was one of the people who helped to set up the MDC. In fact, in 1997, when I was 22 years old, I was one of the people who helped to set up the National Constitutional Assembly. That helped us to come up with a new constitution in 2000. So I have my CV. I've been there, I've done that, and I know as a young person, I helped to shape the nation direction. The movement for democratic change was formed by people like me. I was still at university. So I'm saying to the youth, it is your duty to protect the future of this country. Register to vote, participate in election, and make sure that the outcome of the election, you protect it. Otherwise, you will be forced to go to the diaspora. You will be forced to be called kwerekweres. You will be forced to face xenophobia in South Africa, to face the Limpopo crocodiles. The future starts today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Daniel. And I'm sure by speaking the language that they understand, you know, these young people and their TikTok challenges and all of that sort of thing, I'm sure challenge will be accepted. Register to vote, be out there, be involved, be engaged, you know, look for information around all of these issues and processes around you and your constituency, your family, your friends, and just make sure the discussions are going and you are involved in them. Once again, thank you very much, Honorable Daniel Molokele, the MP of it's Whange.
Whange Central.
Whange
So
Central.
actually, Whange has 3 constituencies.
Yes.
Whange East, towards Lupane, Gwai, Dete. Whange Central, the town where the coal mine is, and then Whange West, where the Victoria Falls is.
Okay.
That's Whange West.
All right, all right. No, thank you so much. Thank you very much for taking some time to come and just hang out with us and have a quick chat.
Thank you, my brother. You're welcome.
All right, and for you guys, till next time, cheers.
It's like I'm in a jet.